Hey movie geeks, I hope you're having a good day. This video was requested by channel member John Eastwood. Thank you so much for the request. If you are interested in seeing me discuss a film or films of your choosing, please click that join button for a small amount each month to support the channel. Oh, and please consider subscribing if you're new for passionate movie analysis for movie geeks. Let's get to the video. It's time to analyse 1971's The Beguiled, directed by Don Seigel and starring Clint Eastwood. Set during the American Civil War, The Beguiled takes place in a secluded girls' school in the South. Clint Eastwood plays a wounded Union soldier named John McBurney who seeks refuge at the school. He has been fighting the opposite side of the American Civil War, and as they house him, a web of desire, jealousy and manipulation begins to culminate as this house quietly becomes a pressure cooker. The Beguiled has a haunting and dizzying atmosphere, and it's impressive to see such a different sort of movie for Clint Eastwood and director Don Seigel. The movie exhibits masterful cinematography, atmospheric lighting, and meticulous attention to detail. Seigel managed to make this house incredibly intimidating and absorbing with his visual techniques, constantly having the characters only lit by candles and a fire, creating the feeling that these women are shut away, enclosed, and live a quiet and gloomy existence. We barely see them in the daylight. The eerie ambience and isolated setting create such an uncertain mood, and this film could have only been made in the 1970s. Seigel made Dirty Harry a year later. Only in the 70s could you go from this bizarre art film to Dirty Harry. What a time of experimentation. Eastwood dedicates himself to the role despite it not being his best, but for me he delivers when it matters, but perhaps does not see every scene through. The film is probably just a little bit too odd for Clint and he almost feels out of place, but I respect his decision to take on this odd and uneasy little art film.
I wonder if sometimes you don't think of yourself as a sleeping beauty in a castle, waiting for a prince to free you with a kiss.
The film is certainly of its time, and the theme of men versus women runs throughout. It's about the damaging effects of sexual lust and desire when utilised in the wrong way, both from men and women. There's such a suffocating and desperate feeling, with the time period and the situation creating people who were perhaps not acting from a rational standpoint. The paranoia and loneliness of war comes through, and shows us the worst effects outside of the battlefield. And I do really enjoy films like this that focus not necessarily on the people fighting, but on the people waiting for the soldiers to come home and the effects it has on them. Sometimes the people left at home are suffering just as much as the people fighting, just in a different way. The women in this house suffer from great loneliness and sexual repression, ending up obsessed with the forbidden fruit of John when he arrives. It's a dark film about the flawed side of human beings who would, in a different situation, likely be different people making different decisions. But the desires have consumed them because they have nothing else to focus on, and the situation is swallowing them up.
You little devil, you're the one who tried to get me caught today.
Well, you shouldn't do things that make me jealous.
You could say this film just depicts women as jumping all over men and competing with each other and being catty and being unhinged, and it could be an anti-feminist film, but I don't think it is because it's so specific to the time. I think it's about the worst of both sexes. Obviously John walks in and he shouldn't take advantage of these women. He starts in a way working his magic. As soon as he gets in, he starts manipulating. So to say it's just about women being irrational isn't necessarily true. Everyone's irrational in this film. Everyone's not thinking and everyone's suffering from this looming war going on around them, so they're not thinking straight. And the female performances in this are very good, with Geraldine Page and Elizabeth Hartman especially standing out. Geraldine as Martha brings depth and complexity to her character, and she keeps you guessing to the end.
Would you be interested in staying on here, Corporal?
Yes, I would.
Elizabeth Hartman plays Edwina, who is a woman who is hiding a lot of frustration and anger, and clearly wants to escape this home she is stuck in, and she sees John as a way to do that, quickly convincing herself she loves him. You really don't get films like this anymore. If you cast your mind back to the 70s and 80s, and even 60s, there were just these films about the terrible nature of humanity. Now, we don't really see it, and I do miss these sort of honest films that probably aren't being made now because people are afraid of offending people. but everyone can be bad. And I know he probably didn't see the film, perhaps he did, but Brian De Palma's Carrie, I feel like could have taken a lot from this, like the unhinged female characters in this, like the outburst of Edwina in a really disturbing scene where she has a disagreement with John really reminded me of Carrie.
You lying son of a bitch! You bastard! You filthy lecher! I hope you're dead!
You know, films like The Wicker Man, like these just haunting, odd films about people who aren't thinking straight, as I said, about unsaid things and inner frustration, suddenly breaking out and causing chaos because it has been contained for far too long. There's a tragedy to the path of our characters in this film. We knew it didn't have to be this way. The film shows the wasted human potential that happens both fighting and staying home enduring the terrible events of war. I must say the film isn't perfect. It perhaps hasn't stood the test of time because I feel like it may be a bit too crazy and bizarre for today's audiences. You know, the films that went on to be mental like this and have unhinged characters were perhaps better films overall than this, so they're remembered. But this is a film full of lust, sexual scenes, deranged outbursts, and it just at times does feel like a bit of a collection of bits. It's not a very well structured film, even though I found it very entertaining, and it's not the best depiction of women or men, but you know what, like I said, that's actually a part of the film I actually respect. And I must say, I never need to watch this film again, but I'm glad I did. There are some moments that are ingrained in my mind, and I do feel like Clint Eastwood goes back and forth with Geraldine Page and Elizabeth Hartman very well in very believable on tenterhooks exchanges. And it's about what happens when you are stuck inside one house with lots of people and everyone's just slowly trying to creep over each other and screw each other over, and they're scheming and they don't know what's going on outside the house. They don't know whenever anyone's going to come home. They don't know who they should support. Really is about that all-encompassing nature of war. I do feel like genuine audiences today would probably be a bit baffled by the film. To be fair, you probably do have to have a bit of appreciation and fascination for 70s cinema. I bloody love 70s cinema, so I really appreciate a lot of this. But I do think it's definitely worth watching if you like these sort of films. There are honestly moments which I did not expect to ever happen in a million years. So the film is anything but boring. It's very unpredictable, and that's quite an achievement when it easily could have been. You know, it's set in one location. Could have been very boring and very predictable, but it ends up being very creative and uncompromising. There are also some scenes that will really make you wince as you watch them, and it showed the bravery of Don Seigel to show a lot of this. He had a real rebellious style here, and nothing was out of bounds. And of course he went on to work with Eastwood again a year later in arguably his most famous film, Dirty Harry, and perhaps The Beguiled deserves a bit more respect, because without The Beguiled, maybe we wouldn't have got Dirty Harry. Maybe you had to make this film to get there. That's sometimes the case with a lot of filmmakers. This is a very underseen film. I don't think a lot of you will have seen it, but if you have, let me know, and I recommend you watch it because I'm interested in what you guys think. Please subscribe if you love passionate analysis for movie geeks, and click on another video on the screen now for more videos in that style. See you soon.